Good to see you, Todd Youngblood. What's up, my man?
Hey, fantastic to be here, man. Thanks for inviting me. This is great.
I am so happy to see you because you are the man behind me sleeping like a bear for the past couple years. And I've done shows in the past on sleep, and that's the majority of what we're going to talk about. We're also going to talk, of course, a bit about your story, which is really fascinating, your family background in terms of business and stuff. Spoiler there. I won't tell you what it is, but it involves sleep. But honestly, like out of all the devices that I've used for biohacking and health and stuff like that, I honestly think your product, the chiliPAD, and you guys, again, I don't want to sound like an infomercial here, but I'm really excited when I find something that works and I feel compelled to tell people about it, whether or not I or the guest have any financial incentive in that conversation or not. It doesn't even matter. I would talk about things that I think are dope. And my number one smart drug, number one biohack in the world is getting good sleep. And you've helped me a lot with that. So I praise to you, my friend, thank you. Because you don't always have the opportunity to run an AC unit in your whole house all night. And If you do, it could be really, not good collectively for the environment or for your bank account. So,
yeah, man. Well, thanks for the invite. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great to finally catch up. We've been talking about sleep together for a long time. We've known each other for maybe 4 years or so. It's been a great ride.
To clarify what he said, we've talk about sleep together, not sleeping together.
That's a very good point.
No,
right.
I'm just kidding.
And when you sleep on my product, it's not sleeping, yes, exactly.
Yeah, he has a wife, guys, okay? Let's keep it clear. No, so give us a bit of your background. I think it's a trip that your family business was also involved in water and sleep. What's the story there?
Yeah, so, the long, crazy story is my uncle invented the waterbed 50 years ago. So it was actually his grad student project. It was part of his thesis. It started with the Jello chair. It kind of eventually morphed into a water bag that you'd sleep on. And, so changed the way the world slept, at least for about 10 years. It was all the rage. It became $1 billion business.
Are you serious that much?
It did, yeah. So,
did he have a patent on him so that
he did?
Are you serious? So he was the only guy that made waterbeds?
No, kind of a crazy story. Actually, didn't work out for him financially very well. He jumped in. He overexpanded. Company basically went bankrupt in like 3 years. And then everyone else jumped in like, man, I love this thing. This is great. Let's go make it. And then everyone else expanded. It took him 14 years to actually settle some lawsuits, and it got kind of crazy. But he's just a prolific inventor. So I worked for him out of college, and just an awesome guy, great human being, lives in Bainbridge Island and just outside of Seattle. Just a super good guy. So when I worked for him, he was in a very unrelated business, but in the back of my mind was always, and when you have an idea that can change the way people sleep, it can change an industry. It can change a generation. There's no one in kind of the generation, certainly my parents, that hasn't experienced a waterbed. They've slept on one. They've owned one. They had a friend that had one. It's pretty cool.
That's cool, man. That's a great story. Yeah, I forget if it would have been the 70s or 80s when I was a kid that people had waterbeds.
Yes, exactly. 70s, 80s,
okay.
70s and 80s.
Okay, it's like mid 70s through mid 80s or something.
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
kind of peaked out, I think, in the mid 80s.
Okay. Yeah, because I do remember, I never had one. Obviously, as a kid, I had one of those little miniature kid mattresses, whatever those horrific things were. Hard-ass, uncomfortable, super hot mattresses. I think about in terms of what we'll get into, sleep, hygiene, I guess you could say, and environment and all that, specifically being cold. And I probably slept like shit my whole life just purely because I lived somewhere hot.
Right.
And I was like overheating, and I didn't know that's why I wasn't sleeping well. And I didn't know that I wasn't sleeping well. Not only the why, but the. So that's interesting. Yeah, the thing about the waterbeds that now looking back, I think that was, probably had a lot to do with their demise is just the level of movement that takes place when one person moves their little toe and you have this ripple effect, a slip and slide going on the other side of the bed, which is why my favorite bed in the world is a Samina bed, which I'm saving up there. It's like buying a car, but it's one of these great sleep systems where you, no matter how each person sleeping together moves, it has no effect on the other side except maybe pulling on a blanket or something. So I want to get one of those.
They put some fantastic engineering into those products.
It's cool, right?
A lot of thoughtfulness. Yeah, it's an amazing product.
Yeah, and for those of you wanting to learn about the Samina bed, incidentally, I did an episode on that a while ago with Klaus Klaus Pummer. Hey, how's it going, man? Sorry, guys. I'm waving to people walking by here. And Klaus is a sleep expert, but also we did a huge deep dive into the bed and why it's so badass. It's Austrian crazy technology. It's insane. And there's also a 45-minute documentary that I did about bed
Wow.
on YouTube. If you search Luke's story, the healthiest bed in the world, you'll find it. Side note. So yeah, the waterbed. And then the other thing about the waterbed that was a little disconcerting knowing what I know now is that it seemed like most of them were made out of vinyl.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And
exactly.
then now we know vinyl is a really toxic substance.
Yes.
It off gases, and people that work in vinyl factories get cancer after 2 weeks. And
Yeah, it's kind of nasty.
It's
Yeah,
it's a
terrible
gnarly
stuff.
material. And so I also like to tell people, if you have a vinyl shower curtain, if you have things in your home made out of vinyl, get rid of them. They're super, super toxic. If you don't believe me, Google vinyl plus cancer or vinyl toxicity, and you'll see that I'm right.
Yeah, a lot of stuff out there on that.
Yeah. Okay. So waterbeds. Are you someone that's really into health and wellness and biohacking and stuff personally?
I've ridden the ride, I guess you can say. So I think when I look at sleep, I'm all about my own recipe. Like for me, and probably a lot of people for your audience, I kind of pick and choose the things that are pain points for me. Like what helps me be my best self. And so, yeah, I definitely have my tricks. And for me, sleep is a huge issue. And it's whether or not you're measuring it with Aura or some other device, man, you had great sleep when you wake up and you feel like you can crush it. We all have had that. And maybe it's you go to bed at 8 o'clock instead of staying up and watch, like just kind of doing the stuff doesn't impact your sleep the best. But when you have an amazing sleep, it means you start your day in an amazing place. And so from my recipe on biohacking, it's like doing the things that, for me, I know help me keep my best self. And for me, it's mostly related to fitness, relating to mindfulness. It's just making sure that I'm doing the things I need to do to contribute what I have to contribute to the world.
What was the moment when you first had the idea that there was a missing link in the market of sleep optimization, and you thought, how can I change the temperature? Like, when was the first thought you had? Hey, I'm going to make a pad that makes your bed warm or cold.
Yeah, so it was a really fun genesis, and it started with just a personal problem of I was sleeping super hot at night. So I was early 30s. I'd go to bed and I'd wake up and I was so sweaty. I would sweat through the sheets. The pillow's wet. It's disgusting. I mean, not only did it's a terrible condition to wake up to, but that's gross for my wife. It changes intimacy because you're just like, man, what's going on with this? And so I was thinking about it. We're running a product development company at the time. I've been business partners with my wife since 2000. So we've been running different companies for the last 19 years. And we're like, man, this has got to be fixable. Every other product that we worked on, we first saw the market opportunity, and then we built the product to meet it, like just general consumer product kind of stuff. And
what other kind of stuff have you guys made?
We've made an airbed that sets up beneath, uses the power of the airbed pump to set itself up. It's a product called the Easy Bed. We sell it to Frontgate Catalog and some other retailers. We've done pool products. I ran a trading company in China for 10 years. We've done all kinds of different consumer goods.
Interesting.
But the fun part about this one was, I don't recommend in general. It depends whether you're pursuing your passion or your business. And this is one where I wanted to work on it because I had a personal need, and it was crazy that you couldn't do it. It was crazy that you could change everything else about a bed. Change the elevation, the firmness, what you slept on. You can change everything about it but the temperature. And so we started just very basically as a need for me, solving a problem, and it was really comfort related. We had no idea on the physiological benefits that sleeping cold would produce. And honestly, there wasn't a lot of research at that time. This is starting in 2004, so quite a long time ago. It took us about 3 years to actually get a product that was engineered and designed, and we're balancing the comfort aspects of it, because if it's not comfortable, it doesn't matter. So it's got to be comfortable. So we had to kind of sacrifice the.
You can't sleep on a cold metal slab that's
exactly
nice and chilly, but as hard as a rock. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically we got a product out there around 2007, and we've finding ways to make it better all the time. It really, I want to say it was probably closer to 2012, 2013 that we really started to connect with people. We had people using the Olympics to help their athletes optimize their training. It was a friend of mine, Sky Christofferson, that he was trying to run data, not drugs, to try to get his cyclists off of some of the drugs and that overall kind of it's that market, that industry is so stuck on kind of bad habits. So he was really trying to break through it and like look at all the hacks that were out there. And sleep, as you mentioned, it's a huge one. So he used our product around then to help his cyclists win silver medal. And they were super underdogs. They weren't even supposed to medal place. They weren't even supposed to be, I think, top 5. And they crushed it. And then his whole regiment had to do with sleep optimization, partly using the chiliPAD. That was one among many other things he did. Then we're like, wow, there's really something here about human optimization. It's not just better. It's not comfort. I'm not sleeping on this. I'm not sleeping better because I'm more comfortable at night. I'm sleeping on it because I'm fall asleep faster. I sleep deeper. So we really started working. That's when really the science turned over. And my wife and business partner, Tara, her background is in physics. And so one of the fun parts about that, not only is she just a great researcher, but she thinks in terms of, the physicality, what's actually happening. And there's just not a lot of the research is growing quickly, but there's such a disconnect on our chemical systems and the physical systems. And it's really exciting to see the biohacking community really spending a lot more time on the physical systems, the PEMF treatments and, being grounded and doing some of the things that help you on the physics side of your body. So
That's cool. What a great origin story. I think it's from everything that I do in terms of health and what now we call biohacking. Used to just call you were a health nut. You took a bunch of vitamins and all this kind of stuff, or really into fitness, wherever the case may be. But I always look at it from an evolutionary standpoint. Whether you call it the Paleolithic human, like how have we evolved? And not only survived, but what has made us healthy and not healthy, right? So things that we eat, things in our environment. Obviously now we live completely disconnected for the most part from our natural environment. But when I think about sleep, two things are abundantly clear: that there would be no artificial light happening after dark at all. I mean, going back a couple hundred years even, right? Let alone a couple thousand. So you would only have moonlight and starlight at night, right? And firelight, of course. And so our lighting is something I talk about a lot, and that has to do with the production of melatonin and regulating your hormones and neurotransmitters and your circadian rhythm, which tells your human meat suit when it's time to go to bed, when it's time to go up. And you can watch animals that are not nocturnal, and they're just about 100% in alignment with the cycles of the sun. So we're designed by nature to live within nature. And another element of that, aside from the light and just the celestial influence that has on us, our biology and our sleep, is the temperature.
Yeah.
Right? So do you know anything about how we've evolved, like the different surfaces we've slept on, from cave people sleeping on the ground to sleeping on animal skins, et cetera? I feel like almost no matter where you are, the ground is cold. Even if you're somewhere where it's a warmer climate, the ground's still going to be cooler than the air.
That's right. Yeah. So I haven't done a lot of research about kind of the history of like sleep from what are the different things. What was that evolution of sleep materials? But it's very clear up until the modern mattress, which I want to say was around 1800s, that where they really started sleeping on springs and sleeping on things that would create really changing it from comfort from basic just function, increasing the comfort values. I'm sure there's a lot more people. You'll get some feedback like, oh, what the story really is. I should research it. But the one thing that's crystal clear is the body's natural circadian rhythm. We know the coldest part of the day is about 4 o'clock in the morning. So to your point of sun to go down, it start getting cooler. When your body starts dropping in temperature, you feel sleepy. Insomnia literally is partially defined by a delayed body heat reduction. So if your body temperature doesn't drop, you can't fall asleep. So when you hear other people talking about it, or if you've talked about it yourself, about some of the tricks to help fall asleep or to be more sleepy. So we talk about a hot bath. Warm your body up so when you get out, it starts cooling, and that creates the sleepiness that makes you fall asleep. So when you talk about that, and that really has to do with hey, when you're out in the sun, you were warmed up. The sun went down and started cooling. The earth started cooling. You would follow that natural temperature cycle. And now you talk about us living in a man-made world. The artificial components in our mattresses today, the thermal energy in mattresses is staggering. Think about what's happened in mattresses in the last 30 years. They went from a fairly hollow inner spring with some fabric on the outside, maybe a little foam on the top, but not a whole lot. And now we're sleeping on bricks of foam, by and large. And what's happening, if you were to take like a thermal camera and take a side profile of that mattress, you see it just slowly heat up throughout the night. It's a heat sink. So we're heating our beds. We're sleeping in a warmer environment. And now our mattress environment is the hottest in the morning. So our temperature is literally going up throughout the night, and it should be going down. It's terrible.
Whoa, dude, that is trippy. I never thought about that. Yeah, and another thing, I think I was like, whoa, about the bath thing, because I've heard through my research that, you want your body to be cooler because it helps you fall asleep, as you said. But I've always tripped out because if I take a jacuzzi, a hot tub, a hot springs, or take a sauna close to bedtime, I have great sleep scores that
Yeah,
night.
right.
And of course, I'm using a chiliPAD when I'm doing that.
Yep.
So I'm, immediately cooling down when I get in bed. But I always thought, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
If you sleep better when you're cold, then why does getting hot at night
Right.
help my sleep? I just keep doing it because it works, but I haven't known the logic. But that makes sense. So if you're putting yourself in an sort of overheated state, then automatically your body's going to go, whoa, too much heat, and it's going to start sort of off-gassing, for lack of a better term, and outwardly radiating that heat away from your body as you start to move into sleep.
You're going to activate, and I can't tell you the exact details of all that's happening, but you're activating your systems to basically dump that heat. And so when that process, that's what's happening, to start putting you in a sleepy state. Yeah,
And thinking about, again, going back to the evolutionary point, is that we've evolved in many cases. I mean, not all humans every single night, but definitely as hunter-gatherer tribal people, we've built fires and we've gathered around those fires after the sun goes down, cooked food, celebrated, danced, had sex, whatever. Those wild natives have done before us. But you're getting super hot from a fire from an evolutionary standpoint. So we're also wired, as the sun goes down, obviously it gets cold and we huddle together around fires and then we get super hot. And then we go off to our sleeping area, tents, teepees, wherever we're sleeping, in caves, under bushes. And then the ground is getting colder and colder and colder until that 4 a.m. Time when it's the coldest and you're in this really deep sleep.
Yep.
And so by making these weird mattresses that we all sleep on that don't yet have the means by which to afford a Samina, which doesn't build up heat like that, because it's open air on the bottom. It's like an open system mattress rather than a closed system. But the the thermal imaging thing, I've seen some mattress companies show in their competitive marketing materials the thermal imaging of how the heat happens within the mattresses, and of course the mattress companies are now, some of them, aware of this, and they're like, oh, ours doesn't heat up because we use these layers of this and that, and they're breathable. But I don't care what mattress I sleep on, I'm still going to get hot.
Yeah. So one of the things, and it really frustrates me in the mattress industry, when they talk about a cooling mattress, like, there's cooling sheets, cooling mattresses, cooling everything, but they're 2 degrees. So passive cooling, the way it works, like a cooling shirt, like, all that stuff, it's 2 degrees. It's helping your body evaporate moisture. It's using your body's natural systems to cool and trying to accelerate the body's natural cooling mechanism. But say if you're sleeping on a cooling mattress, the effect is only essentially a moisture wicking effect. They can have some phase change materials where they heat up and they kind of dissipate some heat, but it's 2 degrees. It's 2 degrees. It's just not enough.
That's way not enough.
No. So
especially if you're talking about, if the surface of your bed and your body's 102 degrees versus 100, like, you're still going to sleep like crap.
Right. Exactly. And so I think that the key thing is it's not enough to prevent heat buildup. So at the bare minimum, if you just think about preventing heat buildup, like, hey, no, I'm not sure I'm that interested in it. I kind of sleep fine. I'm good. I don't have a temperature issue. What people don't understand is they are changing, like, their thermal space, and they're not getting as much deep sleep. So you've seen it on your aura scores. When you have a great cold sleep, like, man, you crush it on deep sleep. Like, it has such a big impact. And all the amazing things that happen deep sleep, like, man, we all need to get more of it. We just wake up, and back to that morning, we know we've had a great sleep when we wake up and like, I can crush it today. Today's going to be amazing. How do we become more morning people? Because we're nicer to other people. We're friendlier. You're such more of an optimist. You don't have to, gosh, you work so hard to be an optimist and put yourself in the right mindset and to do all the things, and this is not to take anything away from mindfulness because it's really important. But boy, if you can start your day feeling fantastic because you slept well, oh, everything else is plus. You don't have to work as hard to get there. You start
Oh
there.
man, so true. I'm a much nicer person when I get good sleep. To that point, I'm here in Austin, Texas, recording this as we are, and I'm in an Airbnb, and I'm not that worried about the power bill, to be honest. So I turn the heat or the AC on to about 67, and so it's nice and cool in the room, and it's a really light comforter. So I'm not hot. But for some reason last night, I didn't get to bed till 1 a.m. for whatever reason. I went out and was hanging out partying. My version of partying, drinking a LaCroix. That's my hardcore party night. But anyway, I went out, came home about 11, FaceTime my girlfriend. It was nice, and start winding down. And I get to bed at 1. I fall right to sleep, which is great. I wake up at 2 a.m. wide awake, just heart beating, super hyper. I wasn't particularly hot, but my sleep, the point of the story is my sleep sucked last night, and I still had to get up and come do my work today, my work/play. It's kind of the same thing in this career, but I had to perform, and I was super grumpy and foggy-headed, and I felt like shit when I woke up. I'm not going to lie. And it wasn't like I was flipping off drivers on the way over here, but I definitely
That's
was.
good. I appreciate that.
It's an improvement, and the way that I used to behave when I felt, undernourished and underslept. But I got up and did a Facebook Live for my other business, and I struggled to find words. My brain just isn't working the way that I like it to work, and I typically don't do a lot of media very early in the morning, and I just had to this morning because it was my responsibility to do so. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's sleep. And again, it didn't matter how many qualia I took, which I love, or all the the bulletproof coffee, all the hacks that I have. None of that came close to if I had gone to bed, let's say at 11 p.m. instead of 1 a.m., got those, couple hours of good sleep there, get that melatonin cranking, and then had a nice, cool, and soft bed. And I think the point that you're alluding to is, well, not alluding to, you're pointing out very specifically, is that the more comfortable and thick and cushy our mattresses get, whether they're the best organic latex or the most toxic fire retardant, poisonous mattresses available commercially, the real conundrum here is making something soft and cushy or getting the right degree of firmness or pillow top, whatever it is that your body likes, relieving those pressure points on your joints and things as you sleep that will wake you up as well if you have pain. But the more cushy they get, the hotter they get.
Yeah, in general, and there are
that's
some,
what I've noticed.
there are some great materials out there, particularly organic materials. There's some wools. There's some great materials out there that don't have quite as much heat buildup. They just do a great job transferring heat very very well. But you're still sleeping in your essentially cave, right? So you're sleeping with blankets on top of you, maybe a weighted blanket. You have sheets around you. There's still some thermal mass. You can't avoid that. There's going to be some thermal mass. And as you're giving off heat, you're heating the space around you. So the air temperature, even if you set the air temperature at 67 degrees, right? Wonderful, nice, cool temperature, great sleeping temperature. You're still heating up your bedroom space around you. And even if you've got great natural materials, and they will help dissipate that.
What are some of the better natural materials for a mattress?
So you did talk about latex. Latex is really good because it doesn't really absorb the heat like a memory foam does. Some of the natural materials, there's some great wool mattresses out there. Some organic cotton fill, like a K-pop kind of stuff. They have different trade-offs about how they manage moisture and some of those things that people have to be aware of. The wool ones can get very expensive, so that's kind of a balance of budget versus versus value in sleep. Obviously, it's a third of our life. Thicker is not better. I think that's it's marketing companies. They're selling foam in a bag by and large. There's no reason anyone needs a 16-inch thick mattress. It's just garbage. You can sleep fantastic on a 6-inch mattress, on a 4-inch mattress. It's all about what's right for your body. So, temperature is just so important. Temperature, sound, and light are so important, and they're underlooked. We sleep for comfort. We generally choose a mattress based on comfort, and which is good. It feels comfy, but it doesn't help your body do what it needs to do. Isn't that everything else we're talking about with overall health and wellness? Because it's not about being super comfy. There's lots of terrible foods you can out and then have a great comfy moment fix, but they're so
pizza.
destructive. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
That's mine.
how do you balance it, right? So it's coming up with that balance of That instant gratification, that sleeping on a super soft, cushy mattress that you buy online for $2.99, and then balancing it with, wow, what's really going to help me sleep better?
When it comes to temperature too, something that's frustrating to me is I want to get into sleeping with other humans in your bed too, which is a whole other issue. Especially, I wouldn't know because I don't think I've shared the bed with another male. But sleeping with a few females in my life, there's definitely different preferences in terms of
Yeah.
the bed and room temperature, and I definitely want to cover that. But in terms of cooling the environment with a really great AC unit, or I was just on a trip in Northern California, and it was maybe in the 40s at night, and I would crack a
Fabulous.
window, beautiful
Yeah.
fresh air in the
Yep.
redwoods,
Love
amazing.
it.
But still, if you put on heavy blankets on top of you, like you talked about a gravity blanket, I like the feeling of big, thick
Yeah.
comforters on top of me. I like the pressure that it creates for
Hmm.
whatever reason. I'm sure
Sure.
there is a reason for that.
It's evolutionary reasons for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I don't like the bed I'm in now. Actually, I think my sleep partially sucked last night because I have really lightweight
Mhm.
kind of blankets, and I feel like I'm not covered up. It's
Yep.
weird. But even if you heat the air environment around your bed, if you put on any kind of heavy blankets and you have a mattress that's made with inferior materials that breathe less, right, and
Mhm.
don't manage moisture and all that, as you said, you're still going to be like a little human radiator and make your
Right.
space hot as hell, no matter how cold the room is, unless you want to have the minimalist blanket and just have like a thin ass blanket, and then you don't get that cozy feeling.
Right.
So, I know this is a first world problem we're talking about here, and I acknowledge that. Like, oh, I don't have the right mattress and air. A lot of people in the world are sleeping in a freaking hut right now
Yeah.
and don't have the luxury of any of that, which I acknowledge, but this is my life, and many people that listen to this show's life is like,
Yeah.
how do you manage the sleep environment closest to your body, what you're talking about, and that the air doesn't really help you in the final analysis if you like that cushy, smushy, heavy blanket kind of feeling. And
Yeah.
that's the conundrum that I could never solve. Hence, enter in putting a cool pad underneath you, which solves that totally.
It does. And you started talking about relationships a little bit, back to, sort of my personal story of creating the product. Man, it's so much more enjoyable to be intimate with the person that you're in bed with if you're not hot. Right? Why would you not cuddle up with the person that you love that's sleeping next to you? Because they're hot or you're hot or
Yeah.
like it's like, nah, dude, I need some space. But if you take out the temperature question, it's so much easier to be intimate. It's so much easier to like share space, to touch each other, to like be closer together, which is kind of just an awesome side benefit, right? Because temperature does tend to separate people, and as we age, we have a harder time managing our temperature. One, because the skin starts thinning as you get much older, and there's other things that happen that we're just not as good at maintaining temperature. So there's all kinds of things that other like secondary benefits to that maintaining active temperature control. We live in a temperature controlled world basically. We don't spend enough time outside and have those big temperature differences. And I'm not as educated on that as probably some other people out there, but I do know like some of the cold therapy. You talk about saunas and ice baths.
Oh yeah.
Keeping your body conditioned to temperature ranges is really valuable.
I call it. I call it. No, I don't. I just came up with this theory yesterday. It kind of came to me when I was being interviewed, and I actually was talking about this topic that we're on. Is that because we don't live, even if we live somewhere where there are seasons, we cut ourselves off from the season. So I had this concept come to me yesterday: is using ice baths, cryo, saunas, etc., or hot tubs, cold tubs. I mean, any hot and cold, however you make it, make your body hot and cold. That we have to create seasons. So I kind of have the four seasons every day, or I try to, or at least two of them, a super hot one and a super cold one, and that's part of my biohacking
Yeah.
practice. But it goes back to, again, evolution and nature,
Right.
unless, of course, you're a human that migrated from around the equator. I mean,
Yeah.
the temperature is more stable and hot, obviously, around the equator. But most of us come from a bloodline that's moved around north to south and migrated a lot and is subject to those um, different extreme temperatures. And that is, just as an aside, I think one of the most powerful biohacks is not becoming totally domesticated and living life at 68 to 70
Right.
degrees, because that's not how we've evolved.
So we
And it
evolved.
makes you
Right.
weak.
Right.
When I
You,
watch someone get in an ice bath for the first time, I mean, it's not a judgmental thing. It was, I'm sure, the same for me. I was probably in an ice bath a frozen lake or something when I was 5, or
Right.
living in the mountains and stuff at various times. But when you watch like a big tough guy get in an ice bath and they're like, it's like, dude, that
Yeah.
is not fucking normal.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
not supposed to have a nervous system that's that weak.
You're right.
You
Yeah.
know, and whether it's a big tough guy or a smaller,
Right.
woman or whatever, doesn't really matter. It's just like, wow, we're so disconnected
Right.
from our own evolution and how we're biologically supposed to be wired to be resilient.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you can get in an ice bath and not hyperventilate, that parking
That's a
ticket
good thing.
or that letter from the IRS or that talk with your wife who wants to go to counseling or get a divorce or whatever, the gnarly shit that happens in our life, is much easier to tolerate because your nervous system has been bracing itself for threats.
Yeah, so it's funny. Like I totally agree with you. Actually, I had my first ice bath experience last month in Malibu. So I'm a fairly newbie in the ice baths. I love
Did you
cryo
pant like a
treatments.
dying dog?
No, no, I didn't. But my brain, that's just mental preparedness. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be super cold. Get there mentally, and you get in, and you're like, "Yup, it's super cold." Like there needs to be no verbal communication necessary. Everyone around you looking at you knows it's super cold. Like,
Yeah.
come on, man, get there.
Yeah.
It's like anything else in life. You're like, that's probably going to be terrible. Going to the dentist, not an awesome experience. If you go there expecting to have an amazing euphoric experience, you're going to be let down. If you go there expecting to have your teeth drilled, you're going to get what you expect. So it's like,
Totally.
but a little bit of mindfulness, right? Or just about being intentional or being aware of like what you're putting yourself body into. Yeah, I was going to talk about something else. I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, let's go back to, I have a habit of doing that because I get excited and then I digress us. But let's go back to the couple aspect,
Yeah.
And I want to know if there's actually any data or anything about, is it just my imagination, or are men kind of always too hot and women always, I'm saying always relatively speaking, but I've never in my life, I don't think, had a partner that I sleep with that is always too hot and I'm too cold. I'm always the one that's too hot. Maybe it's all my ice baths or something.
Maybe,
but I'm always the one that's too hot. And there's a lot of actually potential fighting and tension that is around, whether you're in the car together, you check in a hotel together, you're, trying to sleep. I've never met someone that likes the same temperature I like at the same time. Is that just me, or is that common?
Well, so I would say what we found in being around people talking about temperature and sleep for the last 12 years is it's not consistent of who's most hot. It is consistent that the couples are always different.
Okay.
So even if it's as simple of like, I need to go to bed. There's two types of sleepers when they go to bed. One, I want to get into a cold bed and sleep super cold, cool bed and sleep cold. Or I want to get into a warm bed and have it cool down, so I sleep in a cooler bed. But I need it to warm up to feel comfortable. Right? I can't fall asleep until my body warms up and relaxes, and I stop holding on to the day's stress and go to sleep. But to your point of like, are women hot, women cold, men hot, men cold? There's a lot to do with metabolic rate. There's a lot to do with how your systems are, your weight, right? How much you work out. So we talked to some people that are very active in the athletic space, they're training or they're training trainers, and they're just very metabolically active, and they're just machines, right? It's eat, dump the, eat and metabolize, eat, metabolize, eat, metabolize. They're just working their body systems all day long. They are super hot when they go to bed. They might have 8% body fat. They're just super lean machines, and they're fantastically hot at night, because they just can't cool their system down. The system is so amped up. So a lot of our pro athletes that sleep on the product, it's because they can drop their resting heart rate by as much as 7 beats per minute. So they have a huge, like, it's already it's chilling the system out. It's slowing you down. It's really putting you in a semi hibernative state.
Oh, right.
Because we want to get people in what's called a non-shivering thermogenesis, where you're cold enough, you're colder than comfortable, but not so cold you shiver. You shiver, you wake up. So
yes, dude, that's so funny, because I think when I saw you last, or no, I was talking to someone at your booth, And I was like, I love the chiliPAD, but sometimes I'm too cold. I can't dial it in. And she goes, dude, set it at 66. And I was like, what? Why did I not know this? I've been using it for a couple years now. She's like, yeah, 66 is the number. And now I do that. And no matter what the temperature is in my room, for me, 66 is the number. And
Awesome.
I'm perfect. Yeah, I'm super stoked.
Awesome.
So I like this idea of what is it, hibernate?
Yeah, it's a hibernative state.
Hibernative state.
There's some research that was just coming out about. I'm forgetting the researcher right now, but they were doing research on essentially cooling mice to put them in a hibernative state. So the research is coming, and we're going to find that there's a couple of amazing things we can do when we start changing people's sleep temperature, but putting them in that state where they're essentially hibernating. We're chilling. All of our systems are slowing to the point where we get really deep recovery. But yeah, it's really, really fun stuff.
So that's interesting that it's more about two people that want to share a sleeping space, that it's not a matter of like their gender so much, but it's just a matter of who prefers sleeping hotter or colder.
Yeah.
And so I must just be a person who really prefers sleeping colder and have had the luck of the draw where most of my bed partners have been the opposite way. And there's been some contention. And I mean, honestly, there's been contention to that point at various times. I mean, not enough where you're like, we're got to break up because we like a different temperature. I mean, you add blankets, you remove blankets, whatever. But I bet you that there have been a few divorces in the history of our modern sleep environments just because that's like something you can't get over, you know?
I mean, we call it sleep divorce, right? Even otherwise happy marriage, sleep is now such an issue, whether it's because of snoring, because of heat, because of other things that literally otherwise happy couples literally can't spend, they're not sleeping together. And so they're going through sleep divorce or setting up separate master bedrooms. They're going through like figuring out how to still cohabitate, but it's not awesome. But
and then the irritability,
sure,
and the testiness that you inherently have when you're not well rested.
Yeah,
as
and
we
you're
discussed.
missing that physical touch. You're not waking up next to each other. You're not able to touch each other throughout the night. We're as human beings, we've evolved having other living things around us as part of like kind of a comfort feel. And so whether it's pets, whether it's another human in the bed, being able to like actually have that close contact of other human living things is really valuable to us. I mean, it's a great comforting thing. It helps us dump that stress, right? So the other research we've done, particularly my partner's done a lot of research on, the link between sleep and chronic disease, and particularly about how when you go to sleep in a stressed state, you're locking in the damage of that day, the stress damage of that day.
Oh.
So the difference of like taking a few minutes and meditating and doing that mind dump, and literally like no lion is chasing you. Nothing is going to kill you tonight before you go to bed. We evolved with the all the testosterone and the cortisone levels based on surviving an attack, surviving from being able to work out right through the things that we're most vulnerable to. Nothing in the modern world is going to jump up at 11 o'clock at night and kill you as you're getting into bed. Why can't we just let it go? So when you can find a way to relax and then your body starts doing the things it needs to do when you're getting extra deep sleep, it's amazing. Like that's when you really get that recovery and you're not locking in the stress of our kind of modern days.
This would also indicate why I think most of us intuitively know if we're having conflict with our bed partner that you want to do your best to solve that shit before you go to sleep.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
whoever's most pissed is going to sleep the worst.
Mm-hmm.
If one of them's like, I don't care, I'm not, I'm fine with being in a fight or whatever, and one person's really triggered and upset, they're going to sleep like hell. I know that from being on the receiving end of that at times in my life.
Yeah.
I always want to at least come to some resolution and be like, all right, we're pissed at each other, but I still love you. Now let's go to sleep in peace.
Yeah, let's figure it out tomorrow. I'm willing to work. Let's work it out. We love each other. Stop it. Let's not figure out who's right, who's wrong. Like, let's just kind of figure out a way to sleep together and enjoy, the next 8 hours of like non-conflict zone.
Yeah, because that fight or flight response that we get from any type of conflict, and especially those of us that are less or more triggered by the emotions involved in a romantic kind of conflict, it can really trash your sleep.
Yeah.
So here, where do I want to go with this? I'm really into EMF awareness, right? And one of the things that is so difficult for me to observe is when people use an electric blanket
Yeah.
for their sleep. Do you happen to know anything about the electric blanket
Yeah.
scene for people that live in a really cold climate and don't want to heat the whole house, and rather than wanting their bed cold, they want their bed hot, which is cozy if you're sleeping somewhere and it's 30 degrees in your room for whatever reason.
As a company or as like a product guy, we know that there's a whole market we could be serving by essentially using a water-based system to replace electric blankets. So anyone that uses an electric blanket, oh my God, you're literally taking years off your life. Like, stop. I mean, the products that, like, they cause cancer, they catch fire. It's a terrible product. It's a terrible product. And I generally don't say that about a lot of things. I try to be pretty pragmatic. There's a lot of reasons for people to choose what they choose, but by golly, they just don't use electric blankets. They're cheap, and they use resistance heat. They carry huge electromagnetic fields. You're sleeping under the power lines. You're sleeping on the power lines. Terrible. So in fact, we were measuring EMFs coming off our unit today. There's a guy right down in our booth, and we were kind of measuring like, hey, how's the new unit compared to the old unit? And what about, the Bluetooth connectivity and all that stuff? And we're thrilled to know that at 1 foot away from our device, there's no perceptible EMF difference. So the electronic device itself is the only thing that creates an EMF, like every other electronic device. There's some signature. But once you're a foot away, it's simply you're back to an ambient load of magnetic field.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. And, it's like when someone makes a product, and, we're going to inevitably talk about that because it's one of the areas of your expertise around sleep and temperature and stuff. But I was like, should I ask them about their EMFs? Because if you're like, I don't know, and I happen to know that it has really high EMF, I'm obligated to the audience to say, well, hey, like, put it far away. So first thing is, thank you for clarifying my belief, and based on testing and it's pretty commonly known with health conscious people that electric blankets are absolutely the worst thing ever. Do anything you can to heat yourself up other than that.
Get a good old-fashioned hot water bottle.
Right.
They still sell them. They're cheap. They'll last 3-4 hours. Like, there's other options.
Yeah.
Obviously our product heats. It's not like, and our philosophy is like, look, man, our product might not be right for everybody. We love what it does, and we love the people that use it and all the people that rave about it, whether it's because of finances or preferences. Like, I'm not saying we're, by no means with the NLBL. We're really fortunate to be in a spot where we're being able to bless tens of thousands of people and change their lives, like, on night one.
Yeah.
Like to the moment you get back home and you turn that chiliPAD back on, you're like, oh yeah,
I'm stoked.
I'm home.
Yeah.
Like, this feels awesome. But just to clarify on the EMFs, like, the only thing in the mattress pad on the chiliPAD, it's silicone tubes and water. Like, it's totally inert.
Oh, good, not vinyl.
So, not vinyl.
Good.
No vinyl.
So, yeah, because when I said that earlier, I was like, oh, shit. I wonder if their tubes are vinyl. I'm like, I hope he knows better.
No, I mean, there's plastics in our control unit. Like, you can't make it like everything else, like your
Sure.
iPhones, whatever, we're making it the best materials we can. We try to make it as responsibly as we can. But, yeah, the mattress part is really, really important to us. We gotta keep it healthy. Keep electronics away from your bed.
Yeah.
Keep that sleep space a healing space. We evolved to heal at night. Like, that's when we're supposed to do all of our healing. We're not designed to heal while we're hunting, while we're carrying water, while we're, like, doing the things that allow us to survive. In modern day, we're not healing while we're working. Now, you can keep your mind sharp by doing all the mindfulness activities and being right on being balanced in our lives, but we don't heal during our day. We heal at night on overall in a natural physiological system. So when you talk about biohacks, like my philosophy on biohacking and such, I feel like they're great aids to do the things that aren't naturally happening. So how do we make sure that we can do as many of those things as naturally as possible, the way nature intended, the way we evolved as systems? So the more we can do it naturally, I mean, it's almost like we're trying to overcome all the man-made stuff because we've kind of screwed up our systems so bad. And what we're really trying to do is kind of dial it back to, like, having some modern niceties, but kind of have it less destructive on our physical systems or less destructive on the environment. But, our bodies are pretty magical, and if we just help them stop getting in the way of what they would do normally, we don't need all the biohacks. Let them do the things they're supposed to do. Eat well, right? Know where your food comes from. Know what's in it. Like all the basic things, and let your body be a healthy system. You know?
Yeah, I think that's when I first got into natural healing and all of this stuff. It was, I think one of my first teachers probably was a guy named Dr. Richard Schultz, and he's kind of just a classical American herbalist, I guess you could say. Was really into colon health and detoxing and juicing and all this kind of stuff. And he had a very simple, I guess still does, has a very simple philosophy, and that is, if you're sick, stop doing the things that made you sick. And it's like, it's so simple, but yet what are those things? Oh, sleeping with an electric blanket, eating foods that have GMOs, pesticides, Roundup, MSG, aspartame. I mean, there's some like low-hanging fruit that's pretty obvious. The kind of lighting that we're all exposed to. I mean, now we're learning so much more about that, but it literally is like just stopping the inputs that hurt you as unneurotically as you can. The things that are within your control without being nuts about it. Yeah. And your body knows what to do. If you stop doing the things that make you sick, your body is then, able to have the energy to heal whatever it is. So I'm with that philosophy, and I also kind of go 10 miles past that and do everything I can to help restore the body, including, really taking a focus on optimizing sleep. Yeah. Have you found in being now in the sleep industry that you are that it's a tough sell in terms of a health practice, sleep itself, because it's, I guess, for more of your proactive kind of people that they want the machines, they want the supplements, they want the fitness routine that's going to move the needle, and they're like, sleep, boring. I mean, do you come up against that where people don't see the value in the power of sleep because it doesn't have the bells and whistles as some of the other interventions?
It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot in 12 years. And the 12 years we've been working on it, think about how much our awareness of sleep has changed in the last 5 years. As humans, we want to improve what we can measure.
Right.
We can finally measure sleep.
Right.
So you woke up, 5 years ago, you'd wake up and you felt like crap. You're like, man, I feel like crap. I didn't sleep very well. Now you can wake up and feel like crap. I'm like, let me look at my scores. How was my Aura scores last night? Did I get deep sleep? Did I get any deep sleep? Does it just take me long to fall asleep? I have a lot of disturbances. Like, what happened? Now we can look. We have the data, and it's easy. There's other platforms that I don't like as much, but some data is better than no data. And if you start to quantify what's happening, it's a lot easier to do things that can improve it. For some people, blue light is a really big issue. For me, it doesn't seem to affect me very much. So I end up working on a laptop a lot, 14 hours a day. That's just my life. That's what I have to do right now. Thankfully, I can work and do what I need to do professionally, and I can go to bed. Some people aren't so fortunate, but it doesn't have an impact on my sleep quality. Other people, they need to be super careful about caffeine. They need to be super careful about blue light, or they need to make sure they have a noise machine, or they'll find the tricks, find the tricks that work for you. But once you start measuring it, you can find ways to improve it, and then start doing more of what's working. Sleepy time tea, that's great for a lot of people. Again, it warms them up a little bit so they can cool down. There's some great herbal remedies in there that just help your body start winding down for bed. It's find your secret sauce, man. You have all kinds of things that are working for you to help you just feel great, be on your A game, be your best self. And from a sleep standpoint, because the conversation is increased so much more about sleep, it was a black box we just frankly didn't understand. Our doctors and the medical community didn't really understand it. So it's taking technology to quantify it to actually improve the conversation. So the conversation is amping up in frequency and in quality because now we have good information. And we couldn't get the information that Aura can provide barely off a PSG sleep lab. And then you're sleeping in a lab, not in home, with crap all over you to try to determine how good your sleep is. That's a terrible idea. It needs to be at home in your environment.
I agree with the quantification and the gamification of these metrics. So if I wake up and I have to guess how I slept, I'm not going to be that inspired to improve it because I really don't know. I was like, it was all right. Okay, whatever. Tonight I'll do whatever. I'll do the blue light. I'll eat sugar close to bed, have coffee too later. It's like, I don't know. You don't really know what's hurting you or not. But yeah, having the Aura ring, which I have on all the time now, having that makes me compete with myself, and now I'm becoming a sleep nerd where I'm posting on Instagram, look, I got a 93, dog. You know what I mean? Like, I'm super stoked. It's not like I benched 250 today. I don't. For me, that's not a motivator. I guess the cosmetics and just feeling strong maybe, but it's like, no, I want to beat my own score. I'm only competing with myself, and so I'm like, maybe I should have some kava tonight, or wow, I had kratom last night. That didn't really work out so well. Ooh, did I have modafinil yesterday? Man, I better not do that on nights I need sleep. I mean, you really can dial in what was the temperature like, et cetera. So I think that you're right in that, especially for the athletic type and the guys that are into like high performance, kick ass. Yeah. If you can kick ass at your sleep, then you're going to kick ass so much more at everything else you do. I want to go back a little bit into the mechanics of it, because when I've tried to describe, everyone always wants to know what I do to optimize sleep because I'm so into it. I say, oh, I have this pad, and it makes my bed cold. And they think it has wires in it like an electric blanket. Yeah. So explain kind of the mechanics of the pad itself. What's it made out of? How does it work? How can you make it hot or warm or cool or cold all at once?
Yeah, so the technology is, we're using thermal electrics. So it's basically like a wafer with a ceramic top to it. One side gets cold, one side gets hot when you put power to it. So you don't have to tell the system, I want to heat it up, I want to cool down. You say, look, I want it to run at 108 degrees. And then when I'm cold, I want it to run at 72 degrees. You pick the temperature. And the system is smart enough to know, do I need to heat up or cool down to do it? So there's some other systems in our experience. Some people may have experience with like a radiant floor heat, where it's just basically tubes under the floor that keep the floor warm. So there's some other examples of where they're using similar technology of the routing the tubes. We have the water flowing in the system all the time, and so we're measuring the return water temperature. That's when we know, do we need to heat it more or cool it more. So the system is like an always-on system where it's just flowing water. And we're measuring that return water temperature to hit the target temperature. There's not a lot of water in the system. It's not like you're sleeping on a waterbed. The whole system is about 1.5 liters of water. We use medical grade silicone tubing in it, so like it's super durable and it's not going to like puncture and leak in the bed and that kind of stuff. But yeah, simpler is better. Like it doesn't have to be that complicated. People are like, oh, you need to measure the body temperature, and if the body heats up with a hot flash, you need to immediately cool down super fast and then make the hot flash go away. And interesting enough, we found in our research, when you keep the temperature constant, the hot flash, you never get as hot, and it doesn't last as long because there's no environment to heat up around you. And people have even had fewer hot flashes during the day when they sleep well at night. So there's all kinds of stuff, but I'm sorry, I'm getting back into the customer side of it, or the user side of it. But yeah, it's a pretty simple system. It's easy to disconnect, but it's silicone tubes and water. We heat and cool the water with thermoelectrics. There's a fan that runs, so people ask about noise a lot. How noisy is it? Is it disruptive? You've probably found, just like me, that it's pretty much like white noise. It's literally a desktop computer fan. That's the only audible noise. That's what's running. The new system that we're just introducing for this summer, the Uller sleep system, all on chilitechnology.com or on your site, Luke. That the new system, we've got some great features where you can set a schedule. So you have it automatically turn on a certain time in the night at a certain temperature. You can change the temperature throughout the night, so you can follow that circadian rhythm.
Oh, that's dope. So you could have it all toasty when you fall asleep, and then it gets cooler?
Yes.
Oh,
and then,
that's amazing. Because sometimes, dude, I'll like turn on my chiliPAD, and I have it at 66, and then I think I'm going to bed. So I think that it's not going to be cold yet. But then I run around and do some stuff, and I get in bed. I'm like, damn, it's kind of cold. And then I sort of get away from the pad a little bit. And then, I don't get that like, I'm nice and toasty in the bed feeling. So that, it's, again, a nuanced, like real, quality problem to have. But, if you want to fine tune things and really live like a king, in this case, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Awesome.
And actually, the feature I love is we have a warm awake feature. So literally, you click a button, it'll just warm you awake. No alarm clock, no vibration, no like light going off. You literally just set it to warm awake, and it'll keep warming up till you wake up. And when you wake up that way, it's fantastic. You wake up in a warm, snuggly bed. It's like you're just awake.
Dope, because that's true. It is really hard for me to get up out of bed when it's cold, and especially if it's cold in the room too. Oh God, that's amazing. Oh my God, I can't wait till that thing comes out and I get my hands on one. And then in terms of addressing the EMF, I up until recently never measured anything on the chiliPAD that I have. The now what will be the first or an older unit. Because the silicone tube that goes from the motor part where you put the water in that plugs into the wall, the tube is so long, I've always just intuitively put it across the room. And
Yeah.
plus, even though I actually like sleeping with white noise and earplugs because I live in a city that's loud as hell, I still don't want the fan too close to me. I like it over in the other side of the room instead of like
Yeah.
next to the bed. Um, but recently I did. I think I don't know if I measured the electric fields, but the magnetic field around it, and it had some magnetic field
Mhm.
because it's a motor, and pretty much anything with a motor has that, from my understanding. Have you, in terms of the EMF, have you looked at the magnetic fields and how far away? You mentioned like a foot, so now you have Bluetooth, which would be an RF field, and then you have a power cable going into the wall, which if it's not shielded is going to have a certain degree of electrical field, and then you're going to have the magnetic field just because anytime something has an engine. How geeked out have you guys gotten into the three
Pretty
different elements?
pretty geeked out. The Bluetooth does not need to stay connected. So when you push a schedule to the device, you disconnect it and the Bluetooth turns off.
Oh, cool.
So unlike a regular, like there's a lot of other products that are Wi-Fi enabled. We chose Bluetooth because it's really easy to turn on, turn off.
Right. And then you
It's not
don't have all those
always
problems like reconnecting and stuff.
right.
Like my stupid Sonos at home, which I'm now addicted to, produces tons of EMF,
Yeah,
which I just found out from Brian Hoyer doing an assessment on my house. Super lame. And it produces Wi-Fi just from being on.
yeah,
Each speaker is its own Wi-Fi router, basically,
yeah.
which is horrific. But you can hardwire them with an Ethernet cable, but it's quite a project. And then when you turn music on through them, it's off the charts. It's like,
Really?
yeah, dude, we measured it. It
Oh,
sucks.
that
Sonos, if you're
sucks.
listening, like, figure something out. Help me. Hey, man. So anyway, the rad thing. I'm happy to hear you can turn the Bluetooth. Bluetooth is not, I think, not as gnarly as like a cell phone or Wi-Fi anyway. But it's cool to be able to, like the Aura Ring. It has Bluetooth, but you can turn it on and off
Yeah,
at will. But point I was trying to get to before I got pissed at Sonos, love-hate relationship, was that when you disconnect like Wi-Fi to a Wi-Fi enabled thing, like my little Dyson heater, I found out also does the same shit. So basically people, any Wi-Fi enabled devices in your house are like having an extra router. And what sucks is when you turn them off and on, then you have connection issues when you
yeah.
want to use it again.
That's right.
But with Bluetooth things, it's real easy to sync them back up.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly. So we're really trying to work through all that stuff, and so make sure we're not requiring always on connections. We're really cognizant. We know, it's really important to manage the EMFs, particularly in your healing space. Your healing space is your bed. Like, don't mess with it. Let that be your healing space. And so, we're really trying to take a holistic approach to make sure that we're creating a healthy, recovery space. Yeah.
is there anything? Did you happen to measure the distance of the magnetic field?
Yeah, the distance we measured just a couple hours ago was 1 foot away, 12 inches.
Cool.
There's no discernible difference between the environment EMF and the product EMF.
That's awesome.
So
Thank you.
pretty tight.
Thank you for being conscious of that, man, because, as I said, it could get potentially awkward when I question someone and they're like, no, we have no idea. It's probably not safe. I mean, no matter, even if like the chiliPAD had tons of EMF, the cable, as I said, is long enough to have it far enough from your bed where it wouldn't hit you anyway.
Right.
So it's very easy to have the unit more than 1 feet away, and you probably would anyway. I'm now in this position in my house, having just done this assessment, where I've discovered from Brian Hoyer at Shielded Healing that I have really high magnetic fields in the house, particularly in the bedroom, that's
Really?
coming from some faulty wiring. Yeah.
Wow.
So even something like the chiliPAD or any other, like an air purifier, something that has a mechanical motor that inherently creates a magnetic field, the magnetic field, just the ambient levels in my room is so much higher than any device could even
Wow.
make. Yeah.
That's
So I have
terrible.
to, so yeah, it sucks, dude. So I have to fix the wiring. But what I did as a temporary measure is, and I have to have my chiliPAD on. I'm not sleeping without it. I don't care what's going on. But what I did is now I hit the kill switch on the breaker box for my bedroom, so I kill all the power in my room, and then I have an extension cord for the chiliPAD that goes into the circuit that is the bathroom.
Awesome.
And it's actually, you know what? No, I don't even have an extension cord. between the power cable to the chiliPAD and then the water tube that goes into the mattress, those two together are long enough for me to have the chiliPAD way across the room plugged in the bathroom on a different
Sweet.
circuit and kill all the electrical fields incidentally and that dirty electricity and the magnetic field in my room. And dude, my sleep scores from the first night I hit that breaker on my room went up by at least 10%.
Wow.
And every single night I've slept at home with that breaker off, my scores are in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
it's crazy.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's dope. So
yeah, measurable goes back to measurable.
exactly,
right?
and
You're
that
like, I thought it wasn't healthy. And now you're like,
yeah.
wow, like right then immediately you can measure it. How empowering is that?
And that motivates me. It's one extra step before I go to bed to go into my laundry room and like click. Luckily, it's very close to the bedroom, but I go in there and click that one thing. And I haven't told my girlfriend I'm doing that yet, but she doesn't seem to be very electronically dependent at night. She's not like plugging in a bunch of stuff, so I could probably get away with it. You can still hit the light switch and the lights come on a different circuit. So I'm being like a paranoid guy, but I'm getting away with it. But anyway, I just want to give you kudos for making a really cool and useful product and also being thoughtful about the way you do that. And I like to help promote companies that are doing shit the right way and not making products that are quote unquote like a health product that also hurts you, which some of them do. And you have to weigh the cost to benefit ratio, right?
Yeah.
So even like you might take a great supplement or a nootropic that's awesome, but it's made from a bovine gelatin capsule that was fed GMO food. You know what I mean? It's like a GMO soy cow factory farm gelatin capsule. So you're splitting hairs there, and it probably won't hurt you. But if you're eating 10 of those capsules a day for 10 years, you're
Probably
getting a
not
significant amount of GMO. So do the constituents of that capsule benefit outweigh the small amount of gelatin bovine GMO you're getting in all those capsules? I mean, I'm getting very nuanced here, but it speaks to a point. I would rather just support a company whose supply chain or manufacturing process is smart enough and thoughtful and forward thinking enough to address the possible, downside detriments to their product or service. So dude, thank you for being thank you for being thoughtful and rad. And as I said, I'm like a super fan because you help my sleep so much.
Love it.
And then the other thing is going back kind of to and we could probably kind of wrap up on this, but going back to sleeping in a bed with another human that likes a different temperature, just to clarify, if you had two people in a bed and one wants it super hot and one wants it super cold, at least the version of the thing that I have now, it's kind of like a single, what do you call that? Like the small mattress side that's about half. Anyway, I have a king size bed and my pad is half and then the other half doesn't have one. But if I was sleeping with someone that wanted to be colder or hotter, they would get their own unit on their side and they could sleep at 108 and I can sleep at 59 or whatever.
Exactly.
And her side's going to be super hot and my side's going to be super cold and we live happily ever after.
Exactly. Yeah. So we designed the system to try to be as flexible as possible for people. So in your situation, you just got one, you sleep on it, sleep fantastically, your sleep partner, the temperatures are not a primary issue for them. So they're sleeping comfortably. They're fine. Probably some ways to optimize their sleep, but they don't have to sleep on one. For a queen and king size bed, people can get one that covers the whole bed with two different zones. So people can have temperature anywhere their own side.
Would you need to get two master units?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get two units, but then is there one pad that they both plug into?
Yeah, exactly. So there's two units, of course. So you can get two pads, like someone with an adjustable base or some of that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
It'll work. And you can keep separate pads, or you can buy the one pad with two tubes coming out, two control units.
That's cool.
Yeah, and there's some new competitors coming out they're just using one controller for both sides of the bed. I'm really fascinated to try it, to see how they can possibly get enough thermal capacity to make two people at the right temperature. So it'll be interesting to see. I think you're gonna see a lot more products coming out. Casper's working on some other companies, Casper I believe, and some other companies working on active thermal management. To me, it's vindicating to know that hey, we're in the right space. Everyone else is working on it because this has such a huge difference. Makes such a big difference.
Well, that's a healthy mental perspective too. Having worked with a lot of different brands in the past couple of years, sometimes they get, and I might support two different companies that do something the same or very similar, and sometimes they get testy and they're like, what are you doing? Like, it's our thing. I'm like, dude, everyone needs sleep. Everyone has a bed. There's 7 billion people that have a bed. I don't think the market is going to get completely stolen. It's sort of like, I mean, I guess Apple has taken over the personal computer thing to a degree, but they're still selling plenty of PCs. There's room for everyone. And that's an example where someone just crushed the market. Still, there's enough for everyone at the table,
Plenty of room to go around.
Yeah, 1 out of 5 people that I meet still has an Android. I'm like, what is that weird thing? How do you work this out? Just kidding, Android users. It's all good. But I like that point of view that we live in an abundant universe and that we can be collaborative and you don't have to be competitive to be successful. So thank you. Although I've not seen anyone make a thing as good as your thing, so I'm sticking with you.
Thanks, man.
But don't be pissed at me if someone comes out with, the whatever superpowered cold bed thing.
Man,
but
that just means we have to work harder. We don't take anything for granted. We work hard every day. Make sure that we're doing what we need to do.
And the new unit looks super cool too. And I mean the features of being able to go to bed at a certain temperature and have it get cold and then wake you up warm, like that's freaking heaven. I feel like I was born in the right century this time.
Yeah, man. Perfect.
So I think that's it. My last question. What's my last question? Oh, so you've taught me a lot about sleep and technology and all different things today. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings, Todd, in your life that have helped shape who you are that our audience might be able to go learn from? Could be a book, a philosophy, anything of that nature. A person, living or not.
It's a great question. So I think whether we look at life lessons or business lessons are probably a little bit different in my world of pretty intense on business side and really spend a lot of my energy there. But I feel like what really makes the world go round is the human side, the family side. I've got 4 boys. We have a very active family. My kids range from 10 to 20 years old. For us, it's really all about, staying engaged, staying aware. When you deal with struggle, there's always a path out. I think it's really easy. One of the things that freaks me out as a dad is 1 in 12 teenagers go off to college with a suicide plan. There's all kinds of crazy stuff happening out there.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man. It's a crisis state. And to find a way to stay engaged with people, be human, be vulnerable, know that there's always a way through whatever struggles we're facing, and stay connected to people. It's really easy to end up on an island. In fact, we were talking about this before the podcast. It's probably very energy depleting for you to talk to people all day long, and for you to stay engaged and connected in a high level with people in an intimate human way, as opposed to kind of like in an interviewing. You do a great interview, and then how do you maintain that kind of connective tissue? As far as where I get that teachings from, I feel like I'm learning all the time from people. I've had great interaction recently. It's a personal coach in the NBA, guy got David Nurse. We've been
in touch. Yeah, he's like ayahuasca for me. He keeps coming at me and from all these different unrelated sources, and that indicates to me I need to meet this guy. Yeah,
just a fantastic human being, just a great, super grounded guy, looking to give to the universe, trying to find a way to work his craft and connect with people. And I connect with a guy like that, and we had a choice to kind of go out and party with some new friends, or find some time to connect with David. And it became an A or B choice, and learning lots of lessons on how he approaches life and how he connects with some of the NBA stars he works with, and it's as much life counseling as it is shot counseling about how to be a better shooter, how to hit more shots. Because the reality is, we all need to put ourselves in a position to do what we do best. And I'm grateful I've got a lot of influences around me. My wife and partner, she's my best coach out there for sure. She clearly identifies when I'm off. She's like, what's going on, man? Are you doing your recipe? Are you working out? Are you being mindful? Are you being grateful? Are you expressing gratitude? And those are the things I need to do to make sure I stay on doing what I do. So lots of influences.
Cool. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, man. It's great as always. Look forward to it.